Okay, so let's start our look through Photoshop. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to go to Edit and we're going to look at our color settings. So click here, and this is going to bring up our color settings box. So what we want to do, we want to set it so it uses either sRGB or Adobe RGB based on what you use. Now there's a real big argument on which is best, sRGB or Adobe RGB, and I'm not going to get into all that here. I'm just going to actually show you, based on what you want to use, how you would set this up. So basically I use sRGB. I still use that. I've used it since I got my first EOS 20 and started shooting weddings digitally, and I've never had a problem with it. It keeps my workflow running smoothly, the images look great, and my lab requires sRGB too. So that's fine. That's fine for me. You may want to use Adobe RGB. So what we do, this comes up as North American General Purpose 2. sRGB is already there, which is fine. If you wanted to change that, you could actually go to the drop down box and pick Prepress 2, and that brings you up with Adobe RGB. And again, it's a perfectly fine working space to use, and what you would find is if you had an sRGB lab at the very end of your workflow, you can convert everything to sRGB. But for now, I don't do that, so we're going to actually click back to this. Underneath here, we have options as to what to do with regards to our profiles. Now, if for example you used Adobe RGB and a year ago you used sRGB, so you're now going back and opening up an old image, then you can actually tell Photoshop to actually let you know what to do. It can either preserve the embedded profile, so it'll just work on whatever it is, or you can get it to convert to the working RGB. So that would convert your sRGB file into Adobe RGB. It would convert it in there. So you can click in there, and if the mismatches come up, you can say ask when opening, ask when pasting, and missing profiles the same. So if you actually get an image, someone emails you an image and there's no profiles, it can ask you what you want to do with it. So that's our basic color settings there. We're going to click OK and just leave that alone. Now we're going to go back to Edit and we're going to go to Preferences. And I'm just going to click General and just quickly go through the main ones here. Now in this one, there's nothing much we really need to do. I'm going to go to Interface, and this actually has the different colors in your screen mode, so you can change that there if you wanted to. We have file handling as well. Again, there's nothing really that I want to actually change there. Photoshop actually has it set up pretty good. So the only one thing I am going to look at is the maximize PSD. I'm actually going to turn that off, because what basically happens there is if you maximize the compatibility, it saves small screenshots of the actual image within the layers, and it does increase the size of the image files ever so slightly. So we're just going to turn that one off. Performance, if we click on this, then we can actually look at our memory usage. You can tell Photoshop how much memory it can use, and you can actually tell it where about to find the scratch disk. And it's set up for my C drive. I have 180 gigs of free space, so that's fine. But if you find that Photoshop is slowing down, you can look for a scratch disk that has more space. And you can also change the history states and the cache levels. Now this does reduce what you can do when you're working on images. If you reduce the history states from 20, then you could actually find yourself trying to go back through what you've done, remove some history states, and find that you get stuck. But in normal day-to-day use, I would leave it there unless it's actually slowing your computer down and you want to speed it up a little bit. Cursors, again, they're fine. I would just leave them as that, although you can change them to precise if you want. They go from the standard eyedropper there to the crosshairs, so you can change them if you want. And the same over here, you can standard, precise, or just a normal brush tip. It's up to you what you do there. And then again, transparency and gamma. This is what shows up when we're playing with transparencies, mainly in GIFs or in your background, and you can change these as well. Medium, dark, and colors. Whatever your preference. And you'll find that when you're working, your preferences change. You can come back into this and you can actually play with the preferences. Units and rulers. The rulers are currently in percent, and when we use them, when I show you how to use them soon, you can actually change them on the fly. So I'm just going to leave them in percent. New document, print resolution 300. Well, that's fine because that's what we're working when we're using anything that's going to be printed as a photo, or it's going to go to prepress in a magazine or whatever. So we'll leave that as is. Guides, grids and slices. Now you can change the colors here. We'll be playing with these a little later, and if you find you don't like the colors, you can change them here as well. and then all we have left are plugins and type, which we're not really going to use, and we don't really need that. So let's just click OK to get us out of that. That brings us back to the regular Photoshop interface.